Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome Under the Hood. Thanks for joining us.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. And Michelle has been on hold for a while here, so right out of the gate, we're going to get right to the calls and welcome Michelle to the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Oh, thank you guys for taking my call. I have 12 Terrain, and I have been having problems with the right passenger wheel. Initially, I thought it makes the sound of maybe my brakes or wheel bearings. The bearings are going out, so I got my wheel, the brakes, everything changed on it. And I'm still taking this on, so I took it back to the mechanic, and he did hear that sound, so he put a new brake system on it, and it still makes the sound, and it's been going like that for quite a while, and I don't know what's wrong with it.
Oh, I feel your pain there, having to fight with that and thinking they've got it and then doing it again and still not having it. Is this Terrain, just give a little background here, is it an all-wheel drive Terrain or a front-wheel drive Terrain?
It's an all-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive Terrain. And does the mechanic, as he listens to it, has he taken it out and driven it with you, I'm hoping, and heard the noise and kind of identified what you're hearing, or how has that gone?
He went on a couple rides. First he couldn't hear it, and then we went again, and I drove, and he sat on that side, and he could hear it. It makes like a woo, 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 kind of like that kind of sound. It sounds like the bearings. I had that sound before in another car, and it was the bearings, but he changed everything. I don't know what the sound is.
Did he change both front bearings or just one side that he thinks the noise is on?
No, he did both sides. He
Okay.
did both.
Well,
Michelle, I had this exact problem recently, and it was, you were right, it was the bearing, and it was
yeah.
kind of making the sound was bouncing a little because it was tricky. And
But you also had cupped tires.
Yeah.
So once the bearings were fixed on a lot of roads, you could hear that same kind of noise, but it was
Yeah.
a lot quieter, and then other roads it wasn't. I said, well, bearing won't change.
Yeah,
from
that was
road
on the
to road.
Prius. I took a ride
Yeah.
with him, and he had pretty good noise going there.
We changed that wheel bearing, which was really rough, and we took it off, but it turned out you had really cupped tires too, and those are perfectly safe. But if you've got tires that are cupped, you're going to get that noise, and they may just be cupped on the inside edge, and somebody might not be really looking at that. I've seen that missed a lot, and somebody will come out to our shop from another shop, and they'll say, hey, you know, they said it needs wheel bearings, put wheel bearings in twice, and it didn't fix it. And I walk out to the parking lot and go, well, your tire's cupped. What do you mean? It looks fine. Like, well, put your hand on it.
Oh, he
And
never even.
Yeah, put your hand on the tire, and when you rub it across, it should feel, well, like a tire. I don't know. It should be fairly, let's say, even. You'll feel the ridges between each, you know, the knobs on the tires on the tread, but it's going to be fairly smooth. If you rub your hand across the surface of it the same way it rolls, and it kind of bumps up and down like it has a bunch of little ramps on it because the edge has got a feather to it, or, you know, it's got cups, low spots, that's going to slap the pavement and make a, you know, a sound as you go. The difference between a tire that is cupped or feather edged like that and a wheel bearing typically is as you're going on the road and you hear that wheel bearing noise, if you swerve left and right a little bit, with a wheel bearing, the noise will disappear one way and come back the other way louder, depending on which wheel bearing it is. But with that tire cupping, it'll never go away. It'll just remain constant as it's making contact with the road. So it could just be tires. I would look at that tread really close just to see if that might be what's going on. Now, you may have had wheel bearings that were bad, but now you've still got some noise left because you've got a tire thing going on too. And Terrains are pretty noted for having the tires getting cupped when they
Couple of quick thoughts as we wrap it up. The Equinox is the same thing for people listening. It's the same. If you're driving an Equinox, you have the same type of system, identical. and other things that can be rotating parts on there. Well, let me just back up. If your tires are all evenly wore, they might just try a rotation from the back to the front.
Did you say weird?
I did, and
That's awesome.
I caught myself. Isn't that nice?
I know, but that's still awesome. I don't think I've ever heard that.
I don't think I've ever said it. But
No.
if you rotated front to back, see if the noise changes. It's a simple thing they can do. Do it quick and see if it changes anything. The other thing just to think about, if you've gone through all that, then your other rotating parts you start to wonder about are the all-wheel drive shaft, the torque tube type setup in there. Not a huge issue on those, but gets to be a little bit. The power takeoff unit or the power transfer unit, the PTU, sometimes we've had those get low on fluid and then they start losing a bearing in them and they can get noisy, but that's usually pretty constant, pretty normal. But those are some of the other rotating parts to think about that we see wear on. So,
Michelle, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Yeah, and mine was exact same situation. It was the wheel bearing, but it was also, once that was done, it was the cupping of the tires and moved them to the back and good to go.
Yeah, and you had like a body you were dragging underneath your car.
I did have some bottom structure that was hanging down. I just took that. We took that out just the other day. I'm like, what's this? Oh,
like maybe a 12-year-old raccoon.
Yeah. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Chris. You're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you, Chris?
Hey, good morning, guys. I have a 2014 Audi A7 TDI that the MMI system isn't working. So when I try to get the navigation or the media, like Bluetooth media, Spotify, et cetera, it just goes into this initializing phase, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't boot up. We've tried the soft resets that we found on the Audi forums and on YouTube, but I'm still having no luck.
First of all, how do you like that car? I had a 12 A7. It wasn't a diesel, and we absolutely loved that car. How's that car perform with the diesel in it?
It is amazing. We bought it in Iowa City. We drove it back, and we averaged 42.6 miles per gallon, doing 75 miles per hour on the interstate. And we got like 748 miles on a tank. The car drives incredibly well. It's very plush. It looks brand new, even though it's a 14, and I just love the car. It's like my favorite TDI that I've had, and I've had a few.
That car was one of our favorites. That A7 was one that was fixed up as a repairable. And our matter of fact, our shop, when this car was brand new, removed the complete engine so that the body shop could do some minor unibody repair on the front end of it. It was just to make sure we got it all done professionally correct. And at the time, it was a new model, and so I've got a real affinity for that car. So that MMI system with the crank knob, not exactly user friendly all the time, but once you get used to it, it works pretty well. That was my opinion, at least. But you're not getting anything going on there.
Yeah, super intuitive.
Have you been to the dealer itself to let them do any software programming or anything to it?
Well, I've tried, but it's all the dealers right now are 20 days out on most service stuff. So
a lot of places.
This is no different. We're
yeah,
3 weeks out for service, and they think it could be something pretty simple like a module. But I figured if there was another opportunity to connect with somebody else and not wait 20 days, that would be great.
Well, what you're doing is the right thing with resetting things, trying to get that thing to start back up again. Bad thing is, though, with pretty much all of the systems that we're seeing that are similar, like this Ford, GM, Chrysler, Toyota, Volkswagen, Audi, they all use a similar type of electronics in there, and a lot of them are made by the same company, and they fail. We saw a period where we had a lot of radios fail back in the early 2000s, and then we had indestructible radios through about 2012, right in that area. And all of a sudden, then everything started failing. The design that you saw in pretty much everything 14 to 20, which was available in, like Shannon said, in his in 12, and a few Cadillacs had the earlier version of the 14 and 12. Those, I don't know what their design flaw is, but there's something that they either work great forever or they just fail. The screen will go dark. Fords are horrible. I mean, we've done one this week. It seems like every month we're doing 3 or 4 screens, and sometimes radios. Sometimes the screens will go out and take out the radio. They'll have a short, or sometimes you'll just have a screen by itself, or sometimes just a radio. Earlier in the week, we did a Dodge product that had an issue with the main module in there. So yeah, you.
Give me your just one more time here. Give me your symptoms. What works and what doesn't as far as that system goes?
Sure. Well, the radio works. I can get Sirius. I can get AM, FM. So that works fine. The telephone, I can make phone calls. Use the pad to scribble the initials in, which is a pretty dope feature, by the way. All that works fine. I can take and receive calls, like I said, but it connects via Spotify, connects directly to it. It says it's streaming, but I can't get it to connect on the media side. And then as soon as I try to do the navigation side, it's just it doesn't work either. It just does initializing. So, and I would say the interface is definitely clunky, but
just remind me again. The Spotify on that one is it built into the unit, or are you trying to Bluetooth connect that through your personal device?
I think you got to have it plugged in, don't you? Not Bluetooth. It's got to be plugged in, or is it Bluetooth stream?
I think it might be. I was going to let him.
No, you can do Bluetooth streaming on it.
This is going for all
on
listeners that have. I mean, this is so common now. It's pretty much every car has the ability to do these kind of things, and you may find when they work on it, since it's powered up, they may be able to do a software upgrade on it and bring it up.
Yeah, there's definitely a firmware upgrade that is needed on it, but that's a very quick thing. But they're recommending the factory do it just because of the complications.
Yeah.
With the navigation system and the Bluetooth streaming. So.
It is kind of tricky. I mean, it can be super fast or it can be a super pain. I had to do it on the Camaro, my phone, when my software upgraded to a certain level on my iPhone, and it just wouldn't connect. I would turn the car off and on 4 or 5 times before I could finally get the Bluetooth. I know Chris has been like, oh, man, why can't they just make Bluetooth that works? Well, then I upgraded the firmware in a 2013 car, and all of a sudden, now it connects every time. It's like I turn it off, and then it's connected back again. A lot of these things is just like with Windows computers. When a new upgrade comes out, things don't work anymore. So as your phone gets newer and newer upgrades, sometimes the car needs to be upgraded to match the service on the phone for the Bluetooth version and all that.
And they don't have, in 14 on that car, they didn't have over-the-air upgrades yet.
Mm-mm.
I know our BMW, we just got an alert that we had an upgrade to do, and he went through a little process and sat the car out in the driveway, and it sat there basically for 15 minutes, shutting down, checking modules, going through.
The Yukon does it automatically too.
And it just, you had to leave it alone. Don't touch the vehicle. It was like your computer was restarting.
What a soft people we are, huh?
Yeah, listen to this.
Hey, with the new upgrade on mine that came a week ago, I noticed something I've never seen in a car before. And maybe other people are going, that's supposed to do that. It was hot outside, so we're headed down the road, and the blower's on high, right, in the Yukon, and what happens when you try to use your Bluetooth, right? It interferes with it. Phone call comes in, starts ringing. We hit the answer button, and the fan goes and slowed down. I went, that's a new trick.
Yeah, no, that's a neat deal when that happens.
And I thought, did that just do that? Oh, must be because it's on automatic. And when the phone call ended, it came back up. I thought, that's crazy.
So Chris needs to schedule that update and just set it.
Otherwise, he's going to be buying pieces that he may not need.
Right.
That's the scary part, because he's got so much stuff that works. It's all involving the same components.
Mm-hmm.
So many things you mentioned that are working use the same components as what's not working.
Right.
So I wouldn't be buying any pieces. I think I'd schedule that appointment and
You're just lucky it's not dark like so many of
yeah.
them. That
Chris,
sounds expensive.
Thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Todd. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Todd, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I got a 2018 Ram 1500 Eco Diesel that somebody banged into the side of my vehicle. Well, they knocked out a big portion of the headlight casing, the plastic outside. And I figured, well, I'm pretty positive they're LED, so eventually I'm going to drive in a hard rain and get moisture in there and ruin it. So I ordered a new headlight, received the headlight, checked everything out. Everything is identical. Obviously checked my pigtail and my pins and everything before I plugged in the new one. And for whatever reason, the blinker's operating at double speed. Everything works, but the blinker's going double speed.
Russ just did a neck rotation there.
I
don't know.
I have to say, a month ago, I would not have been able to empathize with Todd, but I am discovering after my son hit a deer, his car has 4,242 different configurations of headlight.
Yeah.
And they have
Slight
to
exaggeration.
Yeah, but only by a few. It is the headlight differences are amazing.
Well, and you have in that car, you've got xenon headlights, with the arc, and they're auto leveling and turning. So you got a lot of stuff. There's a sensor into the car that makes them go up and down. And
The insurance company's really happy about that one too.
Oh,
Yeah, they
yeah,
were
'cause
they
they
were
had-
super.
I remember I looked at your
friendly.
estimate and they priced it and they went, "Oh, that's like $150 headlight." And I went, "Chris, the cheapest used one I can find is like $600." Oh,
On your Ram,
This one was almost $250. So
Yep.
And the only thing special about it is it's got projector on it.
just real quick, Russ, I got to ask
Not
him.
quite sure what
the
that means,
headlight
but-
that you ordered, did you order a factory Ram headlight right from Chrysler? Did you order an aftermarket headlight? Did you order
No,
a
it
used
is
headlight?
it is not OEM. It is not OEM and it is not used. It's aftermarket.
Okay,
well,
I've got some.
and
I sell 'em,
and
but I got
that's
some
the
horror
problem.
stories, too.
So when there's good aftermarket and there's bad aftermarket, and then there's supposed to be good aftermarket that's normally good aftermarket, that's crap aftermarket because things have changed. And I have seen some horror stories in the making by videos that were produced of some of the aftermarket companies actually in the plant while they're making stuff. I'm like, do they really do things like that? And then there's some super great things too, So what has happened? Let's say you've got an aftermarket company, a big one, one here, maybe even one we talked about on the show here, and it's great. And you've bought 10 headlights from them. You're a body shop, and they're all great. And then you get your 11th, and it's crap. It's blinking fast, or maybe you even have a check engine light on, and you can't figure it out. Now, the company that sold it to us is still the same company. They didn't change anything. The shipper didn't change. The people building it didn't change. They're still sitting there in China going, well, we're just putting it together. But whatever company they sourced, let's say this diode from, that says, oh, yeah, this is the same as all the other ones we've ever sent you, they decided they were going to send out a batch of stuff they knew was bad or ones that they just were different and they thought they should be okay because it's just another diode. Well, then that gets installed. They do their quality test. Everything looks good on the bench. They send it over to America. It gets shipped. We sell it. Boom, boom, goes in the car. And all of a sudden the check engine's light's on and we can't figure it out. Or it's blinking fast. So what do you have in yours? You have a problem with resistance. Now you have two choices. You can either take the headlight back and get another one, and then hopefully that one will work.
They said they'd honor it.
Yep. But if that still doesn't work, because let's say they have, let's say they had a batch of 1,000 of them that they made with all that same diode, same resistor, and they're all not going to work. So after you're like on your third one and it's still not working, look up on the internet on YouTube how to fix a fast flashing LED light and just put a resistor in it, because you may not be able to get the right headlight that's working for quite some time because there's a lot of shortages right now. But the problem is there's just not enough resistance there, And they do sell resistors like on Amazon for like $5 that are made to go in line and load that down so it blinks properly.
Or look to buy a recycled original equipment used one if you can find one, because it would be the same as what they put in their new.
Exactly.
Todd, thanks very much for the call. You know what I love about this show? As a listener, in addition to being on it, is when someone calls in and we're going, the parts are all, they got 40,000 parts. And Shannon just sits there and goes, order the right parts, you dummy. Different perspectives. That's what we bring.
Yes.
We'll be back. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. When you call the show, you could win a hoodie thanks to our friends at Universal Technical Institute.
You could. We're going to pick somebody random. They got to have a good story, and we're going to say, hey, you have won a hoodie, and we're going to send it out to you. And our friends over at Universal Technical Institute are making that possible. And, I was listening the other day talking to, the ethanol people were on the radio. I was listening to it, and they were talking about partnerships with Universal Technical Institute and how they're working with them and trying to instruct people right from the mechanics level on how things work. Now, these are the same people that are also working with the engineers and the instructors right from the manufacturers as well. So now we're all on the same page in the same room, because that happens. When somebody has one opinion about something, somebody has another opinion about something. What do? You get the best instructors in the room from both sides saying, I have no problem with this. I have no problem with that. And then they talk to each other, and then you get the truth to the mechanic. Because along the way, if you get a mechanic just trained in the street in a shop, what's he going to learn? Everything that's taught in that shop. They're not going to learn the facts starting at the very beginning. You got to start at the very beginning with the manufacturers and teach how cars are fixed, and then you go all the way to the end at the auto recycler right here where we're sitting today, of where the car is finally taken off the road and properly recycled and sent back with other pieces. So they have the ability at Universal Technical Institute to get you real facts.
And Russ, you bring up a really good point, and just in general. I try to do this, but I'm not good at it all the time. But I appreciate people that are willing to ask the question behind the question. That's what
right.
A long life learner, somebody that will continue to learn and not just accept the conventional wisdom that gets put in front of them, to be able to say, just wait, let's think about this for a second. And that's where the word on the street becomes the word in the mechanic shop, the word in the parts room, the word in that community. And once that word is incorrect, who's going to correct it? There's always somebody eventually that'll step out and say, that doesn't sound right.
You gotta start.
Let me ask a few more questions.
Right.
And I appreciate people that can do that. They can sit there and listen, and then they say, I'm not sure about that. I want to ask some more questions. And then when they come back, all the people that have been thinking one way are usually still going to have their resistance up because their pride gets in the way, and they say, well, no, that can't be right. You don't know what you're talking about, because the majority is against them. But when you talk about like EDUs and UTI EDUs and getting that education, going back to the source where those people are involved, that's a big deal.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Kelly. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Kelly, what can we do for you?
I got a couple questions on. I have a 2017 Suburban Premier, and we were looking at a new Yukon with the SLT, and the suspensions are different. And the sub has 22-inch rims, and this one, the Yukon, has 20 with a premium suspension, I think it's called. And the sub has a magnetic. And I was just wondering what the difference is, and if the guy will notice anything, or
what is the year model of the Yukon?
It'll be a 22.
There's a complete difference in those vehicles.
Yeah, is that an AT4 Yukon with premium suspension?
No.
It's just a standard Yukon?
It's just this SLT with
SLT. Okay.
The biggest difference, though, between the two vehicles, I'll let Russ get into the nitty-gritty on the components, but when they redesigned that vehicle in 21 with the new generation, that is an independent rear suspension versus a solid live rear axle. So the whole rear portion of the vehicle has got a completely different suspension system on it. The frame is engineered different. Everything is engineered. The front end is quite similar on the front end. I mean, there's little differences they built into the geometry, but when we get into the base of the components and we look at like the front differential, the axle shafts, they look very similar between those generations. But boy, when you get past the front seat row back, they completely re-engineered the frame and the rear suspension to work on ride quality with that independent rear suspension.
So they make a Magna ride that the fully electronic. It adjusts as you're going down the road for real-time dampening, where if you're hitting, real hard potholes and things, it's got a little firmer ride. And then if on a nice smooth highway, low wind, low roll, it goes to a smoother suspension like an old Cadillac. It can adjust as you're going, and it's a more expensive suspension. Then they have a standard one, which is just going to be basically standard shocks, strut setup on there to where it rides nice, and that's perfectly fine to get that. And then they go up with their third suspension on that is like on the AT4 that has the off-road package. It has a real-time dampening also with a level control. So when you change your four-wheel drive positions, it raises the vehicle up a few inches, changes that. So, that's the main difference between the three suspensions. But the Magna Ride suspension, where you're going to find, and I would choose the standard one in the Yukon if I had to choose today, because if I'm going to keep it for more than 3 years, because once you have a need to replace parts, Magna Ride parts are not cheap. That's the difference between when they say, oh, do you have the $200 strut or do you have the $800 strut?
And and if you're in the northern climate, and you're going to keep that vehicle for an extended period of time, that's something to consider. Now, if you're somebody that's going to trade it before it gets out of the warranty period or on the lease period, I wouldn't worry about it quite so much. In that new generation, what Russ mentioned, they have that upgraded suspension. We dismantled about 10 of these already for parts, and they have one suspension system that has a full air assist on it also that's a lot like the AT4 that comes in the upscale models. So there's a lot of nice options, but I think if you go out and drive the two, you're going to feel some differences that are going to be, I'm not going to say significant, but quite noticeable between that 17 model
A lot softer.
and that 22 model when you go out and drive it.
That's a good qualifier there. Noticeable versus significant. I mean it. That's a good.
Do you have any opinions on like the new Chevy's got all these Calips that they'll later retrofit different things? Is there anything to stay away from there because of that reason? Or
yes. Right up front, when you buy that 22, ask them about whether or not they're going to, because they'll say, well, we'll put them on when they come in. But what I was told and kept me from buying one, I looked at a truck and they said, if the truck is out of warranty before the parts come in and they're going to upgrade them, we're not going to upgrade them.
But that mean you're waiting a long time unless you drive the miles like crazy.
That's the thing. If you put your 36,000 miles or 50, whatever the package is, on it in 2 years, and they haven't come up with your power seats yet or your module for your moonroof. I mean, I was really shocked how much stuff and equipment that wasn't coming on.
I think they got it narrowed down to a few. What are they telling you might not be available?
This one has the front and rear park assist, air-conditioned front seat, and a locking steering wheel column.
Yep, and what about collision avoidance? Is that they've got that yet or no?
That does not say anything on there about that.
Okay. They're starting to get a lot of parts in. There's a lot of stuff coming in, and a lot of vehicles that are being delivered complete as a package all ready to go. It's the ones that are special order that are still a little iffy.
Well, I think that the manufacturer has a responsibility. My concern is just what the timeliness will be. If I'm spending money for an extra option that I think is worth it, do I wait for a year and a half? Do I wait for 2 months? What's reasonable? Those are just, I think those are personal questions.
Then it's nice to get a brand new pair of seats after a year and a half.
Well,
too.
but I don't know that I think what they're doing is the seat is going to be built with the components
I
in it,
think
and then they're going to come with the module that you need and then program it
like
in.
the sunroofs that were there that wouldn't work without them because they had no module.
Yeah, so some of that stuff, I get a little nervous about it just because I just don't know what the time frame is going to be. It's something we've never really had to deal with before. But the good thing is that they've got these systems set up so that it's a matter of bolting it in and they can program the system, which tells me what I've always wondered on certain vehicles, that they're just using the same wiring harness.
Yeah, and they said, "Oh, you can't put that option in there. You're doing it now." Oh, well, maybe
We can.
Yeah, they can do it
Yeah.
because the aftermarket loves figuring this stuff out.
Kelly, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. What a weird world we live in, huh?
Yeah.
It's just, can you imagine that we would be having this conversation 15 years ago, that you would be buying a new vehicle and then.
And parts wouldn't be come on them.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll put them on later. Maybe we won't. Yeah. So many things are so weird. And then buying stuff. You know, I'm still waiting for one airbag for my vehicle. It's
Still
not
not
available.
available?
It's not being made.
Huh.
And it only fits that 1 year because they've changed. You know, the interiors were newer on that 1 year, but they were different than the trucks. And now they've redone the trucks to match the Yukons, but they're different than the Yukons.
Yeah, it's crazy
They're the
what they
same
do.
as the newer Yukon.
Switchover years can drive people crazy on the parts world.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's just not available out there, but there's other stuff that, I mean, I look at what we've done as a business for the last year and a half, and we're doing great. I mean, we're putting a lot of parts on, selling a lot of stuff, but sometimes you have to choose a different part, go a little different route.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Mark. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Mark, what can we do for you?
Hey guys, good morning.
How are you doing?
My wife's got a 2008 Buick Enclave, and we put rear brakes in it. About a year ago, I ended up having to replace that passenger side caliper with that bracket that it comes with.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm noticing on the driver's side, I'm getting a squeak, pull the pads off, and the inner pad is wearing more than what the outer pad is. When doing that passenger side, and I bled the brakes then, should have I bled that driver's side caliper at the same time?
Well, they're all four separate on that as far as they go through the ABS, and they all have separate lines, so you shouldn't have to. But you replace the whole caliper on the passenger side with the bracket and everything. If you're telling me that the inner pad is worn on the driver's side now, that's where the piston's at.
Yep.
That's telling me that bracket is not sliding properly. So it's pushing out the piston on the inside and applying force to the inside of the rotor and wearing the pad out in the rotor, but it's not pulling the caliper across the bracket to wear the other side. So you need a caliper and bracket on the other side as well. And then you will have to bleed that side.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what's
Eventually you have
going
to
on.
bleed that side.
Yeah, and when they work like that, sometimes you'll notice too that when you step on the brake, it'll pull to one side a little bit as you first step on it, and then it'll straighten back out. That's another good indication that you've got caliper slides sticking or a low pedal.
And rear caliper slides are going to be your most common to go bad because those brakes don't get as much action as your front brakes because of the bias, the way it's set up. And that's something that they're saying even on as a maintenance item on electric vehicles like the Teslas and things like that, is that because of regenerative braking and one pedal driving and things like this, part of the maintenance system is pulling the brakes, lubricating slides, doing things that we probably never put high on the list
Right.
on non-electric vehicles, but just the brakes aren't being moved as much, and so it gets to be a potential for seized up brakes and different problems. So just different things you learn as these vehicles evolve.
Mark, thanks very much for the call. Stay right where you are. We're going to get you a hoodie courtesy of Universal Technical Institute. So there you go. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show. Glad to have you with us. Let's go right back to the phones and talk to John. John, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I got a 2014 GMC Sierra with the 6.2 in it. And I'm losing coolant. and I can't find any leak. There's no sign of any moisture any place in the engine compartment. Nothing on my driveway. Good, clean, dry driveway. And it's about a half a gallon a week. It started about 2 weeks ago. My exhaust tip is dry.
How many miles are on this truck?
134, but the engine blew up at 40,000, and they put a new engine in, so it's got whatever 80 in it.
The 5.3 and the 6.2 are the same engine family, and that's the newest generation. You've got a new generation 2014 Sierra, correct?
Yeah.
The newer generation, because you could still get a classic in 14 that was the older generation. Just on a side note, because I'm paying attention to this, GM announced recently, well, I saw it through the GM Authority blog, but they're no longer going to have, for the continuation of the 22 model year, they no longer have the 6.2 liter diesel or 6.2 liter gas engine available in the half ton, and they no longer have the 3 liter diesel available as an option in the half ton. They've basically are reallocating their supplies, and you can get the 5.3, or I think they still have that Turbo 4 option, a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder. But that was just interesting that there again, supply chain issues, world issues. They said, well, if you want to buy a new truck right now, the ones that we're making as of now, this is what we've got. This is what you buy, and otherwise you can wait.
Mm-hmm.
Any history of coolant usage on the 6.2s in that era, Russ?
No, we haven't had any problem with them. So if I had one of these, I'd look really closely at the engine to see if there's any external leaks.
Which it
somewhere.
sounds like he's did.
You know, you got to look for dried up coolant, things like that. But if it's not there, the only place it can go is the exhaust. And it's so hot that it'll burn up. It can burn a gallon a week or 2 gallons, maybe even 3 through the converters.
Yeah, those catalytic converters are, 1,000-degree fiery furnace on the backside of the engine.
They'll just cook it right up. So it's going somewhere, and it may be passing past head gaskets into the exhaust, but not the other way, so it may not fail a coolant gas check.
Just trying to think if there's anything on the top end of that engine, like we used to have, that could cause those problems. I'm just trying to think through that so we don't miss something here. We don't want to get you too freaked out too quick.
No, I don't think the throttle body's even heated on that one. It might be. If it is, it could be leaking there, but I don't think that throttle body's heated on that.
What you and your technician need to do is just think through all the areas that coolant runs through that could be external. Like Russ has mentioned, and there are some vehicles they run a coolant line to, if it was a turbocharged vehicle, sometimes you'll have a coolant line going to a turbo. This isn't. I'm just using it as an example. Sometimes they do a coolant line that goes through the throttle valve to stop icing when the air is running through the intake horn. And so you'll see, but anywhere where coolant runs, do they have a passage in the intake manifold that's historically known for O-rings to go bad in, or for the intake manifold to warp, and then it causes a leak that seeps into to let it pull coolant into the combustion chamber? That's a direct injected engine, so it's got a lot of under pressure fuel going into the cylinders. It's they're directing the injector right into the cylinder. But if they kind of go through all that stuff and they don't find anything else, then it kind of narrows down to head gasket, cracked head, something like that. And I know our partners at K-Seal would be interested to say, hey, try some K-Seal in there. But that's a new enough vehicle that I would want to investigate that first to figure out where that's going. Yeah.
If it was like my coolant reservoir is down like a cup every couple weeks, and you can't find a leak externally, I'd go for the K-Seal.
And not spend a bunch of money to tear things down yet.
But when I'm losing a half gallon to a gallon in a week,
we got to find out where that's going.
I'm afraid that's going to turn into a big...
You've got a very expensive truck with frankly, a very expensive engine. And so if it's running good and working good, the next step might be to pull spark plugs. If you think about all that external stuff, pull spark plugs and have them look at the burn on the spark plugs and see if you can see one cylinder or the other that looks different.
John, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Got some investigating to do there. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Gene. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Gene, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I've got a 2012 Toyota Highlander, It has the 3.5 V6 in it, and I've never had a Toyota product before. But this particular engine, I think it's in the valve train, has got like a clickety-click all the time. And I've heard other Toyotas about the same area go by, and they've got that same noise in it. And I just wondered what goes on there.
They have a lot of them with exhaust leaks, manifold leak right at the head. They have a sound. Sometimes they're worse when they're cool.
Well, this
Valves
is just a clickety-click.
Yeah, that might just be the valves as well, making a little bit of noise. I guess I'm used to hearing them, so I say, well, that's normal.
Yeah, that would be the question: is if you, and you say you've listened to others, but whether it's normal or abnormal. How many miles are on it?
I think it's normal.
How many miles are on it?
It's got 100,000 on it.
Which isn't, yeah, that's a good amount of miles.
Yeah.
There are some of the Honda products that have the V6s that can get noisy, and then there is some adjustments that they can do on them.
The injectors are really loud too on those Toyotas.
It's just a matter of somebody's going to have to listen to it, see if it's abnormal or normal, to see if there's, is just the tolerances they built into it, or is there a lifter or a follower or something that's not right?
I was just wondering if it's a 4-valve per cylinder motor.
I have no idea what that one has.
Well,
I
no,
can't
but
remember.
you're saying if that's you're wondering if that's what makes the extra noisy.
Yeah.
No, well, there's a lot more valve components in them. Yes, that'll do that. When you have anytime you get more than 2 valves per cylinder, you're adding more components to that valve train, and yes, so it's going to be noisier than one with half the components.
Okay. Well, that's what I think it is.
If your theory is that, you're always going to get a little more resonant noise from that sort of a system. But, boy, they got them engineered pretty good where they're not too bad. But apparently you've got a very keen ear, and you're just saying, this is different than what I've heard before.
What's doing that?
Yeah, and there is definitely more stuff happening, more stuff going on there, so you're going to get a little more noise. But I was just curious. It sounded like initially you were talking about an abnormal noise.
Right. No,
I was trying to zone in on that.
Noticing it and trying to figure out, interesting.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Dale and Mike, stay where you are. We're going to get to you in hour 2 of the Under the Hood Show. This hour of the Under the Hood Show, we had all the vehicles were places. We had Yukon, Terrain, Suburban, Highlander, and Sierra.
And we had 2 diesels.
And those were all named.
The
all
Highlander,
places.
There can only be one.
There is only one.
There's only one.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2 is on the way. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us Under the Hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. And while we were listening to the theme music there and the intro of the show, we have some calls on hold, so let's get right to those and talk to Mike. You're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
You bet. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I've got a Ford F150, 5.4 trike, got 106,000 miles on it. And about a month ago, I was driving it up to the lake pulling my side-by-side. My check engine light came on. Stayed on for about 5 seconds. Went off. I thought, oh boy, here we go. And I got to the Humboldt exit on 90 and it came on again. I pulled off the interstate, hit 38. Going into Montrose, it just shut off. Driving down the hill into Montrose, the thing just shut off. So I pulled over, put it in park, and fired it up and started. I drove the rest of the way to the lake, on the way. Every once in a while, it seemed like the RPM would go crazy. Any ideas?
I just want to check one thing on the way we got your call in. Is it a 2000 Ford F-150 or a 2004 F-150?
It's at 2000.
Okay, all right. Because that one always gets parts guys when you say it wrong. So, and it's a big difference.
94 Ford?
Yeah, because it's a big difference it's a big difference on the components that are in the vehicle too.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like you might have a crankshaft sensor failing. And when you said it stalls completely, that could be a lot of things. But then when you said your RPM kind of jumps around and it does some weird stuff later, it sure sounds like you might have a crankshaft sensor that's just opening up, heats up, opens up, dies, starts cutting out, causing weird issues. You're not getting a signal to the transmission. It doesn't know how to shift or what to do if it's not getting a good RPM signal either. So that could be what's going on. And at that age, when we replace these engines, a lot of times we put those in just because we don't want them to fail later once you put an engine in and then look like some other kind of problem. But, yeah, it's a 2000. It's 22 years old.
Well, you got low miles, though, that's for sure. 100,000, that's really super low miles on a 2000. When that, yeah, because if the transmission was truly flaring like that,
Would cause it to die, though.
No, and plus you'd have probably some transmission wear if you pulled your dipstick and your fluid would be, you'd be slipping, or else jumping gears or something because of a sensor on the transmission or something that's not sensing right. A good thing to do would be able to buy yourself a scanner, just one that hooks to your phone, and watch the live data and be able to see what is causing that and look at your history codes, and you could start sniffing it out, but without diagnosing it, that's definitely something to look at, is what Russ is talking about.
Does that help you out there, Mike?
My buddy's got a Sentra or deal, but he keeps forgetting to bring it.
Yeah, we got to get your buddy.
I don't know.
You got to get your buddy on point here. He's got to get that for you.
that is a common problem.
Yep. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, I got a buddy who said he can help me, but he
Do you know the difference? It's your problem, not his problem.
That's exactly right. Mike, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Dale. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Dale, what can we do for you?
Yes, good morning. This must be the morning for old 2000 F-150 pickup question.
It seems like every week is like that.
We started off our last show with two diesels right in a row.
Mine is a spare pickup, a lot of miles on it, but it pulls good. Don't use any oil to speak of, but it don't get run very much. I took it, been driving it a little bit because my son was going to use it for a couple of weeks this summer, and it was stalling when, like, at a traffic light when it's low idle, or like when I go to turn into the repair shop on the thing and let off of it, it stalled going into the repair shop. I had them run yesterday. They ran the codes on it and everything. I thought maybe I had a coil pack or something was bad. Well, they come back and told me that it shows that the catalytic converters are plugged, and that's why it is. And so I'm asking the question, does that sound right? And it's expensive, he says, because it has 4 catalytic converters on it.
Well, yeah, converters, if they're plugged, they can cause an engine to stall very easily.
If they are plugged.
Yeah, you're not getting any airflow. But they're super easy to check. You pull out the front oxygen sensor on both sides, and you screw a pressure gauge in there, and you can read it. I've even had a few customers where I know when I'm going to tell them it's going to be $2,000 for a set of catalytic converters. Hey, why don't you come back here? I want to show you how we test these. Oh, well, I don't really know anything about cars. Well, it's easy. See this gauge? See this 4 pounds here? It's supposed to have like a half. This is not right. And then they can go home and they can look it up on YouTube. And then they feel good because, yeah, they just spent $2,000, but they know that they didn't get ripped off. You know, they feel confident that, yes, the repair needed to be done. And in most cases, that's it. But, yeah, if they're plugged, that's what's going on. I'm more concerned, though, with why did they get plugged. They could be just because of age, but it could be because the engine's burning oil. So you got to ask yourself, have you been putting oil in this engine?
Yeah.
Does it require oil? Because if it does,
I don't think so.
good.
But yeah,
If it did, I wouldn't want to be putting.
I haven't run. Yeah, no, and I don't know. I mean, it's got plenty of rust and things like that on it, so I'm not sure it's worth doing the whole thing. I just was curious whether that sounded like, or whether it was some other scenario that could come about.
I'll reinforce Russ's point that if it is truly the catalytic converters that are plugged, killing the engine, it's an easy test. But there are things that can happen that will cause a catalytic code because of something that's happening upstream that can send that impression to the computer.
Yep.
So you got to ferret that out. You can't just first time you get a code for converters, you can't just say, get some converters. But then there's other vehicles where you'll get that code, and it's like, yeah, it's time. It happens. Burn a little bit of oil. They're not very sensitive. I think Russ has got, or you got some going with the Prius right now on one of them.
Yeah.
That can happen.
And they've arrested the guy that used to sell those little things to defeat those. So now
they have
you can't get
the
by with
little extenders.
Yeah, so now you can't get by with taking them off, right? You know.
Dale, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
Crazy people.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Gordon. Gordon, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you, Gordon?
Well, I don't have a Ford, but hopefully you'll talk to me anyway.
We got you.
We'll see.
I've got an 04 Nissan Frontier 4-cylinder with an idle problem. It idles too fast, and sometimes it just idles up and down. I took it to a mechanic. He checked for vacuum leaks, said there were no vacuum leaks, and that the only other thing is the computer. It is controlled by the computer. But I've been looking online, and they're talking about an idle air control valve. What do you think?
That's an important part. It needs to operate correctly, and it also needs to stay clean.
IAC is what you'll be referred to a lot of times.
We use the Berryman B12 chem tool to clean those throttle bodies out regularly, and the idle air control motor, which is in there, it draws air through a side port, and it opens and closes this kind of like you're opening and closing the throttle to allow the engine to idle. And if that thing gets gummed up with varnish and sludge, it can't seal properly, and it tries to seal and moves the sludge around, and then it opens too much and too far closed, and when it's cold, it's sticky, and when it's hot, it does weird things. So just cleaning that can make a difference.
You need to do that regardless.
Yeah.
And
B12 chem tool
and it's
through
cheap
the intake.
Maintenance. If you haven't done it already, do that. Make sure and you can even go so far as to pull that IAC out and clean all that up in there without going right through the throttle valve.
Wipe it down. The
Just
whole
get
bit.
everything nice and clean. You'd be amazed that little bit can make a huge difference sometimes. And that's assuming somebody's went through all the vacuum lines. Make sure there's no open vacuum lines. Checking for gaskets that might be cracked that are allowing air to leak in. Check the air intake horn where the air cleaner comes up to make sure there's no cracks or problems in the bellows that connect the air cleaner to the engine. Just make sure that's all proper first. Then we start talking about components, IAC motor, and that is controlled by the computer. but I would not go there first. But we do get people that buy Nissan computers from us. Don't get me wrong. We've had callers call in with some Nissans that had some intermittent problems that they eventually put computers in, but I would not go there first.
Gordon, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Dexter. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Dexter, what can we do for you?
Yes, I got a 2014 Nissan Sentra. I got a couple of different issues to kind of figure out. One is I got an oil pressure light. It stays on. The engine runs smooth and great. I pulled the sensor and checked the actual pressure, and it's good. So what other possibilities are there of what keeps that light on, other than a switch, maybe?
I got to ask what the second question is, just in case it applies to the first question.
Oh, okay. Well, this is separated. It's a transmission shift lock issue.
Okay.
That thing doesn't. About 9 out of 10 times it stays locked. Occasionally, you can shift it out of park. I've recently changed the brake light switch, and there's still something else. I'm not sure what else it is.
Is that a floor shifter on that one?
Yes. Yes.
The most common thing, just to kind of go from the back to the front on your questions, the most common thing we see on those is just over time is that interlock solenoid itself can get gummed up. It only takes one good coffee spill, one good soda spill down through that shifter can really make those not cooperate well over time.
Yeah, this is a college student's car, so that may be the issue.
I've seriously, a lot of times we've asked people when they've had those problems, it can be a pain, but get online and look at how the console comes apart and just take it apart and clean up that whole area really good. Look in there. Sometimes you can't get them clean, and you got to buy a replacement that hasn't had coffee or soda or something poured on it. And that the solenoids can go bad, but that's not as common, Russ, as it is just them being just completely gross.
Right. Right, for sure. And then oil pressure-wise, it can be the sensor itself. That's the most common. Low oil pressure is not real common at all in these engines, but that could be an issue. Or it could have a problem with the gauge cluster in the dash. But I would really lean towards the sending unit itself, as many of those as we've seen fail. And
with no other problems.
Yeah, and there's no way to really test it at home easily. You just put one in it, and they're not very expensive.
Now, if he was looking at a scanner, Russ, I'm trying to think on that car. I don't know
it may read pressure.
On some vehicles, you can actually look on the scanner and see what the data reading says for oil pressure. And if the oil pressure reading on that scanner shows to be in the normal range, you said you did a mechanical test. You pulled the sensor and did a mechanical test, and it showed to be in the normal range. Then you've really narrowed it down to the gauge cluster, and that is also controlled through some of the other CAN bus network. But if the car hasn't had a traumatic event like a flood or water intrusion, or maybe an interior repair where there was custom accessories put in that they could have affected the factory wiring, most likely the problem is in the gauge cluster with just something that's went bad, and it's tripping that too soon.
Dexter, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Jeannie. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Jeannie, what can we do for you? Jeannie, are you there? I think Jeannie's gone. 866-594-4150. What has caught your attention in the automotive world?
Well, Russ had mentioned it earlier just made a quip about an emissions device, but recently there was someone that had an example made out of them again for defeating and deleting emissions devices.
Mm-hmm.
And we put the story up on our Facebook page, and this gentleman is going to spend jail time, very large fine.
$2 million, did I see?
Yeah, and for not only was he installing tuner-type units that were defeating and deleting the emissions on diesel-controlled medium-duty vehicles, he was also writing software to help do it too. And he had been warned to stop. And the gentleman is saying that this was just a sideline from his normal diesel business, but his sideline was apparently very lucrative because there also ended up being some tax evasion or unpaid taxes too that he got in trouble for as they dug into it. But this gentleman, I believe was it North Carolina?
I did not see that.
Yeah,
actually.
I don't have the story in front of me right now, but I think we're going to continue to see more and more of that. And some of my friends in the repair industry that I've talked to too have seen that the number of places that customers are able to get some of these things from are shrinking, and it's not a coincidence with a supply shortage. I think there's a good opportunity to say, you know what, I don't know if I can get this anymore, and then just kind of walk out of the business that they might have been doing for a while.
Well, the law, the laws that they're using to prosecute this guy have been on the books for like forever, since emissions were around. But the actual enforcement of them has been very lax.
Hit and miss would be a good way to say it.
If you're in a shop and you cut a catalytic converter off of a car, you can get you normally you should be fined. I mean that's the way the law reads, and the customer that asks you to do it should be as well. But what typically happens is it gets done. I've never been in a shop where it's been done, but I've known a lot of people where it has been done, and then they go in and they need to get an inspection or something. They go, oh, you can't get it inspected, and then they have to buy the part again, and it's expensive, It
might even be worse because they've cut it apart to adapt in something else.
But now if that shop gets involved in some kind of an inspection by the state or something, and they find that's been done, usually those are tacked on. It's kind of that goes the same way as like states that don't have a seatbelt as a primary offense. You can drive by an officer with no seatbelt, he can't pull you over. But if you don't use your turn signal, he's going to say, hey, let's pull this guy over, and go, oh, hey, you're not wearing a seatbelt either? Well, we're going to get you for that. Oh, you don't have any insurance? Well, I'm checking your insurance now that I've got you over. We're going to get you for that. So if they go into a shop and they see all these catalytic converters and you don't have records that you've sold catalytic converters, what's going on there? Why are you doing that? So they can dig. But for a government right now who is looking for ways to try to, they're on the environmental kick, and they're looking for ways to bring in money. If you've already got a law written in a book, now is the time to enforce it. So we're seeing a lot more of these companies with tuners and emission defeat devices and things getting warnings and fines and stuff like that. And people have been deleting these diesels, but like we said, Shannon, for years, you go taking that stuff off your truck, one day you might have to put it back on, and it's going to cost you way more than leaving it on.
It is. I was just glancing at the story while you guys were talking. What a tangled web.
Well, they do. They
bought a company that had.
We don't even install tuners at our shop because we just want to be totally out of the deal.
Where was that at again?
Well, the guy in the story is from Hendersonville, and it doesn't say where. The other people that were sentenced are from Illinois. His co-conspirators. But yeah, there's a whole. They bought a company that had already been caught, and it's very interesting to look through it.
Well, I think it's one of the deals. Like I said, they got in there to make an example of someone, and as they got digging, they found out this is kind of a couple layers to this thing we got to unpack.
2015 is when they were first dinged for it.
They got a fine then, correct?
Yeah, yes. $4 million.
And they didn't quit.
So.
But that's pretty serious. If somebody finds me, it's not going to take $4 million to get me to quit.
Right? I don't know what the number is.
I think if I got a call from the EPA and it just was the EPA calling and said, by the way, you're not supposed to do that.
That might be where I stopped.
I don't think I need to go much further than that.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. When you call, you could win a hoodie from our partners at Universal Technical Institute.
UTI.edu, Universal Technical Institute. Check them out on the web today. That is the place to go to get trained to be a automotive technician, a lucrative career that you can be proud of, and there's lots of exciting stuff coming.
And time goes fast. you could go do it and be done with the program, and all of a sudden you're done with the program. And as my brother says, in 2 years you could either be done with that program or not. That's up to you.
Every time you say that, I laugh.
Isn't that
It's
great?
it's so true.
Let's go to Kentucky and talk to Scott. Scott, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Yes, sir. I have a 2020 GMC Duramax, and I took it in for an oil change about 2 months ago, and they said, well, we have to do an update on the computer. I said, okay. So they did. Well, I drove about 3 days, and my gas mileage dropped 4 miles to the gallon. And so I went back. I said, you got to reprogram that thing back. I mean, the way it was.
Can't do it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they can't do it. They're like, oh, we can't do that.
Oh, no, that's what he said. I said, that's fine. Get me a new computer. He goes, they're all programmed like yours.
They are.
He told me the DEF tank was burning up. That's why they had to do this.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. If you get if you have an update that's required to be done to fix a problem, well, it also changes everything else. If there's been any emissions changes or things like that that will affect your mileage, yep, they'll go ahead and they'll put those in there too, and there's no way around them. That's the sucky thing about somebody else controlling your vehicle. It's like, just take the DEF tank off. Well, we can't do that either.
What they say the problem was that they were trying to avoid on that?
They told me it
DEF
was
heater.
the DEF. He said tank.
Yeah, it's a heater in the tank. They were having problems with them overheating.
Oh. Well, I told her, I said, you call them and tell them to fix that problem. Then we can go back. But they're not going to do it.
Well, so many things on these programming. When you see like a recall, I mean, recently in the news, the new Lightning Ford truck, a lot of news headlines that said 2,600 new Lightnings already recalled. Well, you read the story, and it was a clickbait story. In my opinion, it is a recall, but it was because the TPMS system wasn't functioning properly.
Right.
And it would potentially cause the car to lose its handling. Well, that would be because if you had a flat tire and you didn't know your air pressure was low. It's a serious issue.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to bring them in, and it was programming that needed to be done to fix the problem. So many times when we see these recalls, they say vehicle needs to come back in for programming. And when they do that, they can control a lot of things, but, boy, there's inadvertently other things that they update at the same time that can drive you crazy. Now, when I hear 4 miles per gallon, I do get a little bit alarmed just to make sure there's not something else going on. But if they start changing the metering because of the way they're controlling that heater, and things like that, they start messing with the crucial mapped programming of the way that engine runs. You don't just change one of those things without looking at a bunch of other stuff in that system.
Right.
It's like a concert going on. If the concert is going to sound good, everybody's got to be playing their part. And if they change just one component to control a problem, those engineers have to look at all the other pieces of the system that go in with it, because they say, okay, now we're not putting as much DEF in. We've got to adjust this back, or else we've got to get more fuel in. I mean, there's
120 miles per tank is significant.
It is. That's what makes me think this sounds like a lot. Have you been on the forums? Is this something that people other than you are saying that they've lost that kind of fuel economy?
No, I'm going to get on there. I haven't. I've been so busy.
I would do some more asking around, because the folks that have the Duramaxes run as a herd. The folks that have the Cummins run as a herd. The Power Stroke diesel folks run as a herd. And there are some very intelligent people in those forums that know these things inside and out and can really help you kind of direct. There's also some people that are a bunch of yahoos that just like their diesel truck, and they don't, I hate to go into that, but they want to blow black smoke, and they're going to say what they say because they like their truck. But you got to get into the technical people that really understand these things. And some of them are the ones that like to blow black smoke. They know how they work.
Scott, stay right where you are. I'm going to put you on hold. We'll help you out. We'll get you a hoodie, and that'll cover like a quarter of a tank for you. Yeah. So you'll get back to even maybe for a day or two. 866-594-4150. Now let's try Jeannie again. Jeannie, are you there?
I am.
All right. What can we do for you?
I have heard that a car gets better gas mileage on the top half of the tank than on the bottom half. So I try to keep my tank more than half full. Do I get better gas mileage?
I can answer this one.
I want to say something. Your car is very positive because it's
right.
It's always looking at the glass half full.
Half full. It's just the gauge, right? The gauge just goes slower on the top of the.
Then I'll give you the facts when you guys are all done discussing.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just having fun because it just sure seems to me like it's unreasonable.
Right. All right, Russ. Does she get better mileage in the top half of the tank?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But
not?
Absolutely not. It's every drop of fuel as it's put in the beginning when it's full. For every drop of fuel that you burn out of that vehicle, the better your mileage gets. Now it might be you're not going to be able to record it normally, but it has to do with weight. So if you're driving down the road with absolutely zero wind at 60 miles an hour with the cruise on a 100% flat road, and you're getting 18 miles to the gallon with you, your coffee cup, your 30 gallons of fuel in the tank, when you drop that weight, all other things being 100% equal, every drop of fuel that goes out, your mileage is going to increase because you're taking weight off the car.
So in that theory, you should get better fuel economy with the tank half empty, right?
Yes. Or
a
quarter full.
Because, I mean,
Yes.
they talk about it in racing, how important the fuel load is when they come in for pit stops. So if they've got just 5 laps left in the race, sometimes they'll just take tires and no fuel because they don't want to add the extra weight.
Right.
And sometimes they want to add weight because they want to change the suspension handling of the car, and adding that fuel can change how the car dynamic handles.
Besides the danger of fires during a crash, there's a reason they do not fill aircraft tanks 100% full all the time. It all has to do with weight. They can tell you this plane in this wind is going to get this kind of fuel economy per pound of fuel, and down you go. So when you start less weight, everything less weight, that's the key. You strip down the cars to get better, that's just what they do. So yes, now it does appear that way though, because when you're driving your car, I can remember cars, it's like, boy, it takes forever to get to a half a tank, and then all of a sudden half to zero is nothing. Like this morning, I put 5 gallons in Chris's car, and it's over half a tank, and it said the light was blinking empty.
Mm-hmm.
But I bet it would take me twice that much to get all the way up to full.
Yeah.
A lot of new cars, though, if you notice, are really accurate. A quarter tank is a quarter tank. A 3/4 is 3/4. But you get a car, 6, 7 years old, and even back, some of them were really off.
We were talking about one of our inventory specialists, and he's got an old Chrysler full-size camper van, and he was saying he put $30 in it, and he knew it was empty, and it just got to E. He put another $30 in, and it just went over E. And he goes, I know it's what size tank it is. He said, there's something going on with the gauge. So if you're judging your performance by how the gauge sweeps, that's just going to get you a little frustrated. You really got to check your fuel economy with your pen and paper calculator.
Mm-hmm.
One of our employees has a truck, and he's pulling a camper with it. And he says, well, I don't want to have to stop as much, so he wanted to add like another 40-gallon fuel tank to it. And I said, I wouldn't do it. 40 gallons of fuel, that's a lot of weight.
And
it's going to
320
affect,
pounds about, or a little more.
It's going to affect your power going up hills. It's going to affect your mileage. I said, I just stop more, and it gives you a chance for safety-wise to check things out, too, while you're pulling.
Jeannie, thanks very much for the call. That's a good question, though. I think a lot of people have that gauge trick that if you do that, though, it does make you feel better. I mean, if you only let it get to half a tank and you put in whatever now it is, $175 for a half a tank of gas, and it goes full and it takes longer to go, it makes you feel better.
I was at the bank the other day at the drive-thru, and they've added pumps.
Right at the
bank.
Just
so you can get a loan and then your fuel right after that.
866-594-4150. We're going to take our last break of the show. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Brian. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Brian, what can we do for you?
Morning, guys. Got a 1986 Chevy Camaro Z28 T-tops, 305 engine, carbureted. and my complaint is the carburation. Going down the street, this thing's got so many RPMs, we can't get it cranked down to go slower. I'm using a brake more than a foot feet. So I'm thinking, one, is there not a possibility to put a electronic fuel injection kit on that engine? Number two, if I just want to get a whole complete different engine with some more horsepower, what are the engine names, I guess, that you could swap in there without much modification?
Okay, take these questions in order, I guess. The 305 Camaro carbureted was a sad day for the Camaro in the Firebird. It was in the era with, their emissions were coming on them. They didn't have the high horsepower engines as prevalent yet. In 85, you could start to get the tune port engines that were in them that were a little more fun. But that 305, in the end of the day, is only going to be so peppy. So it just doesn't have a lot of torque or horsepower, either one of them. You could put a aftermarket fuel injection system on there. I mean, there's many companies that make aftermarket injection, throttle body injection systems that can go on top of those small block Chevys. And they would use a similar system on the 305 as they would the 350. That they just meter the fuel differently for that engine. You could make it run smooth and make it run a lot better. But you're still, just not going to get a lot of power out of that engine unless you went inside and did modifications. Then you might as well start with something different. And that's when you can start looking at doing a 5.7 liter 350. You'll see guys take those cars and put stroker motors in them and all kinds of stuff. Because your old school small block Chevy horsepower will bolt right into that car. So there's lots of opportunities. Now, we talked about emission stuff earlier. You kind of got to forget you're going against some emission stuff and be willing to do that. If you're in a state with emissions testing, you might get yourself in trouble if you have to get the car inspected. So you got to be aware of that at least. There are lots of folks online, too, that are taking the newer LS engines, which are extremely efficient, extremely powerful. Just the way they're made, they work so much better. You're talking 330, 350 horsepower versus the 170 or so horsepower that 305 had, maybe 180, I think it was. And there's conversions that people are doing regularly with those cars to put the LS motors in them. But that's a little more of a handful. You got to reposition motor mounts slightly, but they make kits for all that stuff. So you do have a lot of options on that car, and you're starting to see a lot more people take that generation of car and do just this to it.
Dropping an LS in, what's the floor there?
Drop
what's the
drop a 5.3 in there, or if you want to be really follow along with the emissions rules on it, you'd have to be the same or less displacement. So you could get a 4.8 LS engine in there, and then still be over 300 horsepower with an automatic overdrive, catalytic converters on it. That thing's going to increase in fuel mileage with the gears that they typically came out with in the cars. You're probably going to be getting 27, 28 miles to the gallon in that car, plus almost double the power is what it's going to feel like.
That car's probably got 273 or 308 gears in it or something like that.
And the engine's probably down around 150 by now with the age on it, so you're going to almost double your power, and that would be great. And you could pick one of those up by buying you could get a complete vehicle to take it out of a donor, like an old truck that's just super, super rusty, that's, frame bad and all that stuff, because that's the only way you're going to get an old truck now, because they got to be ready to take them off the road, but they can still run good. There's projects out there you can pick up.
Vans. People buy vans. A lot of times they've got the rear-wheel drive transmission in them.
But if you look online, you'll see all those conversions. Look up LS conversion.
Best case scenario, what's an LS going to cost to put in?
Well, you can find an LS conversion sometimes if you buy a whole vehicle for $1,500.
Okay.
But you might want to get just the certain one that you want and spend $7,000. You want to go all the way and put a LS3 in there, or out of a late model Camaro or something, your price points just keep increasing as your options increase. So you've got a lot of options with that car. And I would say that for me, if I was going to, if the car is clean, nice, special, and I'm going to want to keep it, and I'm not concerned about keeping the car original, that 305 is going to get thrown out of that car really quick.
Yeah, there's no rust or anything on it. It's clean. So.
And those cars are.
I don't know what my options were.
Yeah, those, and just to finish up, and you can tell you hit a vein with Russ and I. We like these kind of cars too. But The 86 Camaro Z28 is a nice car. It's a fun car. If you kept it clean and nice, it's going to be collectible to a certain extent. But I don't think it'll ever have the appeal of the IROCs and the cars that had the 350s in them. So I don't think you're hurting anything if you said, I'm going to modify this car.
I gotcha.
I think if it was clean and modified, it could actually be worth more than an original car with a 305 in it, if it's modified well.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Makes sense. I appreciate you guys' help.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks very much for the call. That was kind of a fun one. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Bill. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Bill, what can we do for you?
Hey guys, I'm just have a Ford Maverick pickup truck coming my way shortly, and I've never driven a hybrid. I'm just wondering if there's anything to know about them, maintenance-wise, and any peculiarities to it that I should be aware of.
How long have you waited for your Maverick pickup truck?
I ordered it last June.
So you're over a year.
And what's your expected date?
Over a year. Well, actually, the last date I had was June 27th.
Have you got a VIN number? And they've given you a VIN number and said it's
I do have a VIN number now.
I'm just comparing your story to my.
I see
my
we have a Bronco
story.
in our parking lot now.
That's a Bronco Sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we got a Rex one out there.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, Chris? Tell them about maintenance on a hybrid vehicle.
I don't do maintenance on it. What do you mean?
There you go. So it's a maintenance-free car. Now you'll still have some things that need to be done and different things in other cars, but typically the brakes last longer because you've got regenerative braking. But they're a hybrid, so you're still going to need brakes, and they are going to wear. Chris has put, I think, one set on yours.
One set
in
over
200 and something.
Well, on both cars.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had two. The easy answer for Bill is no. There's driving a hybrid. It's
the same.
It's the same. It drives the same. It does everything the same.
Just change your oil regularly. You'll be. I mean, that's very important on those cars. Sometimes even more important if you're running electric a lot. But, yeah. So.
I got a question just to follow up on that ordering process. Did you? Because they make that Maverick without the hybrid system too. Did you have a long discussion with yourself to decide whether you're going to get the hybrid or the not hybrid version?
Well, the reason I went the hybrid is I don't need the capabilities of a big truck anymore. And the front-wheel drive was attractive to me, as well as the mileage. And quite frankly, the price. I mean, I could get a fully loaded truck with all the bells and whistles for safety, stuff like that, for around $30,000.
Not bad.
They're getting very good reviews on that truck. The thing that concerns me with anything else, when they start making a bed in the back, that people use them within their limits.
Right.
And so people don't think.
That's right. It's only got a 4.5 foot.
So just make sure you understand what your towing capacities are and what you're going to do. But I think that they've got a good niche going, and that truck's I think that's going to be a home run for Ford. They're selling out of them quick.
And it's huge. Yeah. I mean, compared to like a B2000, or a Chevy Love, it's the same.
Boy, go way back.
Well, it's the same class of truck as those old small pickups, but that Maverick is not small by any stretch.
Well, I think Ford's I think they're going to have a home run on their hands. I think they already know it.
Bill, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Dell. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Dell, what can we do for you? Dell, are you there? I think we lost Dell. 866-594-4150. What else has caught your attention in the automotive world?
Well, as we get ready to go, depending on when you catch this show, whether you're catching it live now or one of our podcasts or watching on YouTube, you're probably in the summer travel season.
Mm-hmm.
And fuel is expensive. And so people are making choices about what they do on their trips. But there's some simple things that we really want people just to be aware of. And if you haven't taken out your tire gauge, check your tire pressure. Boy, I checked one of my kids' cars the other days, and they were 12 pounds low on every tire.
Okay.
It's a car that we just didn't use as much, and I was checking. I'm like, wow, that was just still from winter and sitting around, and that's a huge difference. That's a big difference. If a person is going to be able to, to change that area to that much difference, that's going to change your fuel economy.
Yeah.
You potentially could be talking a mile per gallon. Who knows? I can't put a number on it, but it's going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
How you drive makes such a big difference. You know, we talk about people want to buy all these gadgets and different things that, if they work that good, the manufacturers be using them. I'm a gadget guy as much as anybody else. Ask my wife. Her and I love buying gadgets and different things to see how they work and then laugh about them when they don't. Hopefully we laugh at ourselves.
You can
but-
make spaghetti from zucchini.
Yeah, I ordered something the other day, and she goes, "What did you order this for?" I just felt like it. But driving reasonable is your best way to get good fuel economy. There's some of these vehicles that their sweet spot for fuel economy is programmed in between 65 and 70 miles an hour. You get to 85, it is so much difference. Set your cruise control once if you have a trip computer that shows instant fuel economy. They're not completely accurate, but they're pretty good. Watch that trip computer on a pretty level road if you can find a non-windy day at 67 miles an hour. And then set it to 82 miles an hour if you're on an interstate system that allows it, and look at the difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's considerable. And at $4 to $5 fuel, it makes a big difference. So check your air pressure, drive reasonably. It's going to make a difference. You're not going to save. I have to tell myself this. We're just getting ready to go on a long road trip. I'm not going to save that much time by driving that much faster. It's going to save a lot of fuel. Also, be aware of people that are towing, to give them some room.
They're probably going to be towing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your approach speed as you come up on people is going to be different in your passenger car or pickup than it is with somebody that's towing something. And then plus just give them some room, because there are times where somebody moves the steering wheel a little bit and that trailer starts moving around that they're pulling with their boat on it. There's times where you get an I hate to say this, because if you're listening, don't feel like your feelings are getting hurt. I'm an experienced trailer tower, and I tipped one over this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that are inexperienced trailer towers out on the road. During the COVID era, the sales of campers, RVs, boats went through the roof. And there's a lot of people pulling these that don't have as much experience as others. And so if you haven't gotten familiar with that yet yourself and you're the tower, it's okay to go out if you got a few extra bucks and just pull that thing around a little bit and just feel what happens. We've seen people that can't back them up.
Right.
They get to the campground. Don't get mad with people. Be patient. Maybe you need to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they just need a hand. Now, their pride may not allow it, but
yeah, careful when you go offer.
But just be aware of people towing, and if you're towing, make sure you know the capability of your vehicle. There's so many people over pulling.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. This is the Under the Hood Show after show now. Just like that, poof, boop, I can't snap. I'm not a good snapper, Nope.
Russ, you can snap well, can't you?
I can clap really good, but snapping's not my thing.
My friends all give me a hard time at ball games because I clap weird. They've been trying to teach me to clap for about 2 years.
Huh. What do you mean?
Well,
like with the position of your hands?
Yeah, well, at one point they thought I looked like one of those guys that jumps out of
like a seal.
Like a monkey.
Yeah,
grinder
like
thing.
your,
Yeah.
yep.
Oh, the chimpanzee
Yeah,
with the symbols?
So then they've converted me, so now I've got more of this going on. Is that
Chris has got the best.
It's a little,
but
it's a little flat-handed, I think.
Yeah. So how do you clap?
I clap.
That's a good clap.
Yeah, that's about the only thing. Physically, that's my thing. I can clap really well.
Flat-handed. So
yeah, there you go.
they've been working on me.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden I'll go back to this, and then they're just laughing at
Or-
me.
or-
How did we get to that?
I do have to say, I am disappointed in you, Shannon. I
For stretching the show out when we're trying to quit?
2 weeks ago, I made a joke that I thought was really good, that you didn't catch, and it was unlike you to not catch it. You were talking about towing capacity and that you had too much truck because you thought your trailer was a lot heavier. And I said, yeah, that seems to be a thing with you, that you misjudge the lightness of your trailer.
I went
And
right past that.
you
I heard
did.
it.
You said, yeah,
I heard it.
Did
I
you?
went right past it. I just kept on pedaling. I wasn't going to let you have that glory.
Come on.
Because I heard that. kite references could have been made.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to sell that trailer.
Oh, it's
Sitting right out front.
Okay.
Yeah, if anybody needs it's a nice trailer. It's just, it had some airtime on the side. But if somebody wanted an affordable trailer.
How tall is the rear door?
78 inches height. It's a little taller than some of them that they make. But I don't know if it's tall enough to get some of the side-by-sides inside of.
Yeah, I need
okay.
one with a
Really?
7'1"
At
door.
78 inches?
There's some of them that are with the suspensions and stuff that are a
Oh,
little
I
tall.
suppose,
They're jacked up.
Yep. And this one is it's not made strong enough across the stringers to be like a full-size car trailer.
Okay.
But like, Model T or something like that.
That's
or,
what I'm looking for, but
yeah.
I need a 7'1" door to get that in the back.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Because
gotcha.
it's only like 1,400 pounds, but it's
That trailer that I've got is we're off subject already here, but it's a 28 or 27 by 7.5 foot trailer, aluminum. It's made for snowmobile and ATV type use is what it's made for. When that trailer was new in 2016 or 15 or whatever it is, it was $9,000.
Okay.
Equivalent trailer today to replace it, adding a few options, you can start bumping 20 grand in a hurry.
Yep.
And it's only been 5 years.
Is that just because of the market?
The market.
Okay.
And the cost of production.
Sure.
Cost of supplies, cost of labor, cost of everything has just went up that much. And so it's just amazing how that market has changed.
Right.
And they're still just as light, and you still shouldn't pull it when the wind is 62 miles an hour, gusting out of the south.
The wind this summer has been insane.
There's a different airflow across the country. They were talking about that the other night on the National Weather Service. That's why we're getting this heat that
We're in the
we
middle
don't.
of this peak of the jet stream just too often.
Yeah, and we've been hitting days. There's days. I mean, we're in South Dakota. For those of you in Texas going, oh, it's hot down here. It's like there's been several days. Like yesterday, we hit 99, I think it was.
And with a blowtorch of wind.
And it was humid, yes, and it was very windy. And yet in Dallas, it was cooler. You know, and we've had more hot days, I think, this summer, abnormally hot for us in South Dakota than normal. Usually it's like 2 weeks of a lot of heat, and then we're back to a little cooler weather. But we've also had some really cold days when it should have been warmer earlier. So they said they expect the summer to be hot and dry. And there's other parts of the country where they're getting tons of rain, other places where they're getting no rain. You know, I keep watching. I've become fascinated with Lake Mead and Lake Powell and watching them dry up.
We've noticed.
And Lake Mead is like, it's just gone.
You check it daily?
I look every couple days. There's several guys that do a great YouTube update, and they're like, okay, here we are back again, and well, here's where the water was last week when we were here. And look, guys, it's dropped 3 feet, you know, and they keep moving the marina. The marina now has been moved all the way out. It's against the island. It can't go out anymore. So, and it's moved hundreds of feet just in a few months. So
Last
now,
time I was there, they'd already moved it out a long ways.
well, now it can't go any further. It's all the way against that island that used to be like way out. So now they're going to have to take the whole thing and disassemble it and move it around out into the bay, or it's going to go. But they're talking about it's not going to be very long now, unless some miracle happens and rain starts coming, that the dam is going to quit. No more water out of the lake, no more dam, and then that's going to make the national news because of all the power loss and all that. But what's fascinating to me is all the stuff, the hardware they're finding on there. They're finding dead bodies. Hey, I was going to tell you, Chris, last week they pulled
dead bodies, Chris.
No.
They pulled a mobster guy that had been running the casinos. They identified the body. They're like, oh yeah, it's him. And one of the first ones they pulled out. But they're pulling, a lot of barrels with. If there's a barrel sealed up in the bottom, it's usually got a body in it. Some of them they're like, we don't know what's in it. A lot of this stuff happened so long ago. But we're
stuff
talking
from the fluorescent tubes of the old casino.
stuff that was like,
we'll pay to get rid of that.
500 feet underwater at one time, which nobody's pulling up, and it's just been there forever. A lot of the places they didn't even dive because they're just like, but the boats that are in there, crazy boats, big
You're gonna
boats.
force me to break down eventually and go find this and look at it.
Right. That's exactly.
You've got me just about tempted enough.
It's crazy. There's one boat that became famous in the pictures because for quite a while it was standing straight up. It was a big cruiser. It was like 38 foot or something, but it was in the mud and it was standing up, and then it became completely dry. It was just the tip, and they're like, "Oh, look, the front of the boat," and then it turned out to be the whole thing. It was nuts, but it's
How many
very
cars have
interesting.
they found?
I haven't seen a single car in there, because a car, to get in there, they would have to
Launch it from somewhere.
Yes, because when they built the dam and started filling up the river, it just filled up. So the car would have to be sitting there unless they hauled it out on a boat and dumped it. So I'm not expecting to see any cars now when it starts filling back up again. Yeah, but it's a great opportunity for them to clean it up and, go around the lake and do
I think
things.
they'd rather not have that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. They want the water back.
How
but
do you
it's-
clean it? You gotta use water. Don't use the water.
Yeah, and all the dead fish. It's ugh.
You think they're down there with like a scrub brush?
Yeah, they're just
This is huge operations, Chris.
brooms. They use brooms like in
It's,
the shop brooms. The stiff bristles.
It's crazy. I don't know how we got on that subject, but yeah, the cool
How
old,
did we
old
get
boats
there?
are
Weather.
weather.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh yeah, because it's hot and dry. But now it's
Shiny
affecting
thing over
cars.
there. What's next?
It is affecting cars. We're getting a lot of people with air conditioning work. I have had a few people though say, no, I can't spend $2,000 to fix my AC no matter how hot it is because the gas prices are so high. They're like, I don't know, it just doesn't. They're like, we got to see what's going to happen. We're just not sure. Gas prices though do not seem to be I have not met one person yet that says, I'm not going on my trip. I'm not driving. I'm not taking my boats out. I'm not
Personally, I haven't
driving
either.
my jet skis. I'm like,
But they're modifying in other places in their life so they can still do that.
yeah, they're just spending that money that they would have spent somewhere else. And people are back at the racetracks in full force. They're back at the car shows. It's almost like, I don't know if you can say it yet or not, but it's like, where did COVID go? It's still around, but it's like people they like a switch. They said, I'm going back to the car show. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And they're doing it. It's I don't know. It's just a cycle we go through.
Yeah. You mentioned racing. We got to give a shout out to our local racetrack here.
Mm-hmm.
We have Houston Speedway, which was repurchased by the Quiring family here a few years ago, and a bunch of upgrades have been done to it by the previous owner. And the track was a center of attention for a long time for many of the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But now, even surviving a horrible tornado/windstorm that rocked their world, they've survived. And we just had 4 days. First time the World of Outlaws has been at a place for 4 days since Eldora Speedway.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a $100,000 to win race on last Saturday night down there. I was at a wedding, and when I got home and I wanted to watch the feature on Dirt Vision right away, and oh my gosh, what a race!
Yeah.
The Sheldon Haudenschild ended up coming back to win the race. He was down in sixth place with 2 laps or 3 laps to go, whatever it was, and came back and won it by quite a bit.
Yeah.
With on the last lap, he was pulling away already. And, But it was something to see, and he won $100,000. And so they've announced now for next year this High Bank Nationals at Houston Speedway, and right in our home area here, $250,000 to win. It'd be the richest dirt track race in history for the Outlaws sprint cars. I'm guessing that Eldora or Knoxville might have something to say about that.
Start bumping it.
That purse money, but that's a bunch of money for that
for sure
that world. So
that
it'd be
track's
interesting.
coming back and turning into a kind of a famous place.
Well, I think the owner there, he's got a mission, and he's the type of person that is motivated. He's professional. He has a high standard of excellence that he expects from what they're doing, and Doug Johnson, the general manager down there, they deserve an attaboy for what they're trying to do down there.
For sure. It was a fun, we watched on Dirt Vision. It was a fun weekend to watch over there.
And that's a big difference too, is that you may not always have the fan count on certain nights. Boy, the number of people that are subscribing to watch racing, and the rest of their world goes. It's not any different than the big boys on TV. You see some of those grandstands, and they're not always full,
right?
But they're putting on a product that's being consumed, all over in different medias,
for sure. Yeah, it was fun to see. It was fun to see all the cars there and
drive by. I know my mom and dad said they drove by on Saturday night, and it was packed to the gills with people and cars, and I believe he made an announcement of buying some extra property too
across the road. Yeah,
across the road for future expansions.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
cool.
A lot going on down there at our local dirt track, and so we're excited to be part of that. We sponsored the stock car class down there. It was what my dad cut his teeth in, was helping form that class. It was the late model stock cars, and they even sent one of them for a crazy flip on one of the nights.
I have never seen a stock car crash like that on dirt in my life. Now, I'm not the most experienced dirt track.
It was a heck of a ride.
It was crazy. And my wife's family was all there, and they said it was the most.
Well,
they've never seen anything.
And it
like
happened right in the front straightaway.
Yeah, and that's where they sit.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law dove. She dove for cover because she.
Oh, the car went high enough in the air that another car went underneath it and clipped the top of its sheet metal roof off underneath it.
If you haven't seen that, if you're a
look for
dirt
that
track,
clip.
yeah, it was a sprint car crash, but in stock cars.
Yep.
It went. Oh yeah. All right. What else? Anything else? That gonna do it?
Travel safe.
Yeah. Go ahead. Travel. Just be safe.
Travel
and
safe.
try to get better mileage.
Yeah, make that your goal.
Yeah, there you go.
See if you can get better fuel economy. Now, I'm saying this. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. I'll see.
I'm pretty sure my fuel consumption's going to expand in the next day or two.
Hey, we should talk about that.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Give a big shout out to the techs at our service center.
Absolutely.
I mean, Russ and Jake
Let's
and
subscribe
Matt.
to the show first.
Yeah. They've been up there
Smash that
working
like
on all
button.
kinds of stuff, and in between things, they've
And buy advertising.
They've got the
There you go.
Chris's car going again.
Mm-hmm. It's been a road with that car, and now it's summer, and now I can drive it.
Well, Russ and I have talked about it. We know that the smile that car puts on your face is important to us.
I pulled in. It's sitting out front of the studio. Oh, we could go to here. We can go to it. Let's go to the right there.
Let me zoom in for you.
Okay. Oh, look at it. It's like it was parked for this. That's the car right dead center under the silo. Oh, yeah, there he's going. I'm so excited for it to be back, and I wonder if I can get that camera.
Now you're zooming in on my truck. There you go.
Yeah, look at that. Ready to go.
My wife says I've surpassed the number of back window decals I should have on my truck.
It's
She said
getting
it's too
to be
many.
a lot, yeah. And it's the Kappa weekend out in the Black Hills, or week this week. I could drive that straight out there and go rallying with other Kappa vehicle owners.
The what?
Kappa. The Solstice Sky TT, whatever
That's what
it
they
is.
call it?
Yeah, it's the Kappa.
Didn't know that.
The Kappa body.
That's pretty good zoom right there.
That is.
Pretty
Look
good
at
zoom.
that thing.
It's just waiting for Chris.
Yeah.
Waiting for that intercooler to get bashed on a curb.
It's waiting. It's waiting to get washed, I'll tell you
You
that.
know,
I got
there's-
big plans for that thing
There's
this
not
weekend.
a lot of good airflow with that. I've noticed that car runs, when you get up over 80 miles an hour, it actually gets hotter than it should because there's not enough airflow. You
I
slow
wouldn't-
down, it's fine.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, you got to watch that temp gauge.
Oh, okay.
Slow down, Chris.
Could we
All right.
put some other air ducts in there to bring some fresh air in somehow?
So if you're
Just
driving
saw a
along,
hole in it.
typically that's an indication you got a radiator going bad. So if you're at a highway speed and it gets warmer than it does at lower speed, that's it. But if you drop that thing down to fourth gear and you run it at 3,000 RPM at 70 miles an hour, it's cooler than running it in fifth gear at 82 miles an hour at the same RPM. But there's no boost either way. It's running zero boost, so it's not like the engine's got a bigger load on it. It's just what it does. So it's I figured it out. It's airflow. There's not, that thing, that intercooler up there blocks a lot of air.
And it's supposed to do the opposite, right?
No.
The
The intercooler.
You're keeping the air cool that charges into the intake manifold. So that cooler air is more dense and you'll get more power.
Okay.
It doesn't have anything to do with cooling the engine.
Okay.
We just had that in a conversation the other day with somebody. It has to do with the intake air for the engine. And so that's a big difference. So that's why, well, you know that too.
Starting the
Race
video game?
cars, drag cars, they all run better when it's on cold nights
Right.
and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
intercooler is to change the complexion of the air coming into the engine only.
Okay.
Yep. So that's air going through. It's an air-to-air intercooler. There's no coolant in it. It's just air.
I got you. Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. I thought it was both.
Nope.
I thought it was okay.
Nope. So in theory, a lot
So
of
when we talked about putting a cowl on that car right there, it was to get air around the
you
intercooler.
need to get air around that intercooler so it can get to the radiator. And that's why you'll sometimes even see like a deflector that'll hang lower to catch some air to push it back
Okay.
up into the radiator.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I got you.
Well, you watch NASCAR. They talk about their air ducts for the brakes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You look
Slow
in front,
down.
Look
Keep
in
it
front of
under
those
210.
cars. They're the tape that they'll put on there and stuff to change airflow. It's part of their aerodynamics. So they have to run those duct works in there to pull air in to cool down brakes to get it to the coolers
Because
the rest of the front end is so blocked off.
But around town, with the air on, with it 100 degrees outside and high humidity, it's running 194, 196.
Perfect.
Right where it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And for those of you who think we're making way too big a deal about the Solstice, it is a GXP. It's got a little bit bigger turbo on it. It's
Roll bar, different shocks,
yep.
Coney coil over shocks all the way around.
It's a GXP that's got a good fun factor to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, look at the smile.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm like, all right, you guys done talking yet? I want to go
Let's get our production
in
done
it.
so we can get going.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for the Under the Hood show. Thanks, everybody. Click subscribe and get the alerts,
Smash
the
that like
notifications.
button.
Yeah, smash that
Buy
subscribe
some
button.
advertising so Chris can pay for his car.
Yeah, if you want to advertise on the show, just contact us.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's get some intercooler
tape.
Let's get some stuff going.